Hello students, this is Amardeep Singh, your ICT teacher, and today we are going to continue with the same chapter, that is cascading style sheets. And today we will discuss about topics class selector and ID selectors. So in previous session we discussed about selectors and their types, and we are having actually four types. One is universal selector, one is element selector, and today we will discuss class and ID selectors also. So a universal selector, as we know that it is a selector defined with using star symbol, and it a universal selector will be applicable on all the elements of a web page. And if we define an element selector, then the name of element selector a will be the tag name, and that selector will be implemented on all the occurrences of specified tag. For example, here we have defined, in this page we have defined this style for h1 tag. So that means this style will be applicable on all the occurrences of h1 in this page, and this one is for paragraph tag. So if you define a style by using a tag name, that will be known as an element selector. So next we'll start with class and ID selectors. In this session we'll continue with this example. To understand the concept correctly, we'll continue with this example. So in this page we are having a main heading, a subheading, what is the website, then a paragraph, a subheading, paragraph, subheading, paragraph. So that means we are having four paragraph, four subheading, and one main heading. To create this page we have written this code inside that. One is to create a main heading, we have used h1. To create a subheading we have used h2, then p tag for paragraph, this one, and then again main heading, subheading h2, p tag, and for paragraph, then subheading and p tag for paragraph, and closing of p tag. So we'll use all these things. So if we talk about a universal style, then let's suppose I'm creating a universal style by using star symbol. Then inside this universal style rule, then I have used color colon red semicolon background yellow. I'm again revising the same topic because to have a better understanding of the topic. So save it, then refresh. Now you can check the universal style is applied to complete web page. All the character, all the elements, even if it is h1, h2, or a paragraph tag, it has been applied to all the elements. Next, if I'll define this for h1, h1 is element selector. This one is an element selector. If I define this for h1 only, then it will be applicable on h1 only. And if you will define it for h2, then it will be applicable on all the h2 occurrence, all occurrences of h2. If you will define it for p tag, then it will applicable on all the paragraph tags. So that's all about universal and paragraph element selector. So after revising previous selectors, universal and element selector, we'll discuss about class selector. A class selector lets you to apply style for a group of elements. A class selector is defined by placing a dot symbol before a class name. Here we are having syntax or an example to define a class selector. If you want to define a class selector, then the name will be a user defined name. You can write any name. For example, in case of universal selector, you have to specify here star symbol. In case of element selector, you have to specify here the name of element, the name of tag. But if you want to create a class selector, then you can define any user defined name. Even you can specify your own name preceded with a dot symbol, and inside these curly brackets you have to specify the uh, style declaration, and that will be same for all type of selectors, and this part will be same, and only you have to change this. The name of the selector will be a user defined name preceded with a dot symbol, that is known as a class selector. So let's start how to create a class selector. To create a class selector, you have to specify the name of class selector preceded with a dot symbol, and the name can be any. You can also define your you can also specify your own name to create a class selector, but I have specified here dot abc. Then inside that you have to define a style rule, color colon red. I'm using only these two properties for demonstration sessions only. We'll discuss another properties also in next sessions also. Cyan. So I specified this class selector. So if we talk about element selector, when we define this selector, and this element selector will automatically implement on all the uh, occurrence of p tag. For example, if we talk about this one, then p tag, everywhere we are using a p tag, then the same style will be applied on all the occurrences of p tag. But if you will define a class selector, then you have to specify where you want to apply this selector. So if you want, then this one is the syntax how to define a class selector. Apply a class selector, then p class keyword as an attribute equal to name of that class, excluding this dot symbol. You have there is no need to specify dot symbol. You only have to specify the name of class, tag name, then class as an attribute, then name of that class. So let's start. Let's suppose I want to specify, I want to apply this class selector on h1 tag. Then I will specify h1 class equals to name of this selector, that is abc, without dot symbol. After saving, if you will check, then now it has been applied on this one. But the benefit of using this class selector is that you can apply the same class selector on different type of tags also. For example, we have applied it on h1. Now I want to apply the same tag, same style on h2 also. This one, second occurrence. This one, first occurrence of h2. This one is second occurrence of h2. I will specify class equals to abc, then save it. Now you can see that we can apply same class selector on multiple different tags also. So that's all about using class selector. After class selector, we'll discuss about id selector. In css, properties can be applied to individual elements using an id selector. This difference between the difference between id and class selector is that id selector can be used to identify one element with the specific id. Id selector can be defined using hash symbol. So that means if you want to define an id selector, then hash symbol is used instead of using a dot operator, uh, dot symbol. So only this one is the difference. If you want to use it practically, then practically this one is the difference. You have to replace that dot with this hash symbol, and in the tag you have to replace that class attribute with id. Instead of using that class keyword here as an attribute, you have to specify id here. But the actual difference between that means in the same in this way we can use this id selector in the same way that we are using class selector. But the only difference between class selector and id selector is that id is used to maintain the uniqueness of some attribute, For example, if you will specify one ID to one particular element, particular tag, then by rule you can't use that same ID for another element. So that means we can apply same class selector on multiple tags, but ID selector is applied to individual elements only. So that is the difference between class and ID selector. So let's start how to use this one. So if you want to define an ID selector, then inside style tag, after closing the previous style, then you have to specify with hash xyz. I'll specify the name of this one as xyz. Then inside that one, color colon red, then background colon blue. So if you want to change the color, I'll change the color also. The color of font is yellow, and so this one is ID selector. So I want to apply this ID selector on first paragraph. Then I'll specify ID equal to only the name of that ID, not the symbol, hash symbol. I'll specify only xyz. So that means on this p tag that ID will be applied. Now you can check this one. So the difference between class and ID is that in this case we have created a class and we have applied that class selector on h1 and h2 also. So we have applied the same class on multiple different attributes, different elements. But in case of ID selector, we can apply that ID only on only on a single element only, because ID is used to maintain the uniqueness of uh, attribute values. So that's all about class and ID selector. Only the difference is that this one is known as class selector. You can create a class selector by defining a user defined name with dot symbol, and same you can define a user defined name with hash symbol in case of ID selector. And the difference between using these selector is only that uh, we have to specify class keyword as an attribute with any element, and we have to assign class name. And in case of ID, you have to use ID keyword instead of using class, and you have to specify the name of that ID. So that's the difference between class and ID selector practically and uh, technically also. So that is all about all type of four selectors. So if you people are having any kind of doubt related to your uh, this topic, that is selectors in CSS, then feel free to contact me. Thank you very much.